Are we ready to get going? All right, how are you all doing this morning, bright and early? Can we have a round of applause for all of you? Those people aren't applauding over there. So we have a fantastic session for you. We also arranged it so we all had hair of different length, beards of different length, but colors, different colors, but super excited to be here to talk about how Azure Active Directory B2B, the platform capability coming in Azure, is becoming a part of the identity fabric, changing how external collaboration works across Microsoft products, on-premises products, and products, third-party products as well. We have a lot of people representing different parts of our Microsoft product family here, and I want to introduce all of them. My name is Sarath. I am responsible for Azure Active Directory B2B. I work in the Azure Active Directory team. Laith is a PM on the Teams team. He is going to be doing the demo of external collaboration in Microsoft Teams. Mark owns the lifecycle management and security controls that will keep your external collaboration relationship safe across all products. Sahil is the PM who will be doing demo for external collaboration in Office 365 groups and the new innovation that's coming out there. Then Sirui over there is going to be doing Power BI for external collaboration. How many of you have wondered whether Power BI is going to support external collaboration or not? So Sirui is going to do some demos there, and we are going to move on to Brett, who owns the SQL Analysis Services product, and he's going to show how that comes together. And we have Mary, who's representing all the women in identity today. If you look at her Twitter handle, she has got a huge responsibility. And she is our marketing genius extraordinaire. She's going to be helping with questions if you have any issues about, or questions about licensing and purchasing and how we do outreach. Mary's going to be around. So with that, let's get started. What we're going to do today is we're going to kick off with a vision of what are we trying to do with Azure Active Directory B2B collaboration, and this is the vision that will guide every single product announcement that we are going to make over the next several years. So I'm going to share how we are thinking about it. We'll talk really quickly about what the product capabilities are. I'm not going to do the basic, what is Azure Active Directory B2B demo, redemption experience, etc. But instead, this talk is going to be in Q&A form. We have heard questions from customers, hundreds and hundreds of customers have asked us questions, and some of them bubble up to the top. So today's talk is going to be question and what the answers are for those questions. For example, we're going to start by saying which products support Azure Active Directory B2B and external collaboration. We'll do demos there. Then we'll go on to security and governance controls in Azure Active Directory B2B. We'll talk about how do you get external users to work in your organization if you don't know ahead of time who they are. And then we'll talk a little bit about the roadmap items in terms of identity and federation, et cetera, for B2B. We have a packed session. We tried really hard to cram it all in the 75 minutes that we do have. So I would appreciate it if you save your questions to the end. We'll stick around as long as it takes to answer your questions. Does that make sense? This is sound like a good session for you all? Awesome. So let's get started. First, what are we trying to do with Azure Active Directory B2B? We like to say that Azure Active Directory B2B is like oxygen. Everybody needs it, right? Now, if you're a small company, you're too small to be able to do everything on your own. You have to work with trusted partners to help you succeed. If you're a large company, the only way you can be successful is if you focus on your core areas of strength and then work with trusted partners to fulfill the non-essential business areas. And so every company on the planet, every organization, regardless of the industry that you're in, regardless of the security and governance constraints that you have a need to work with external partners. And with Azure Active Directory B2B, what we are trying to do is, if your organization has Azure Active Directory, we want you to be able to work with any partner on the planet, regardless of how they do identity management, work with them securely without having to create new accounts, and enable that through all the applications and all the resources, all the data that you have. So with Azure Active Directory B2B, you should be able to connect with any organization on the planet with that partner organization being able to bring their own identity to work with you, but you having complete control on the authorization and authentication policies that keep your data safe. So there are three big parts of this promise. The first part is that this needs to be comprehensive. The first way Azure Active Directory B2B is going to be comprehensive is it's going to allow you to work with any partner on the planet. There are only three types of partner organizations on the planet. Type 1 is a partner organization that has Azure Active Directory already. And any organization with Office 365 falls into that bucket. In fact, 90% of Fortune 500 companies already have Azure Active Directory. So chances are, if your company works with a large organization, they probably already have Azure Active Directory. That's type 1. Azure Active Directory B2B will help you work with them seamlessly. Type 2 is a partner that has an IT department. So if a new employee comes in, they get a new identity from that company. If that employee leaves, their identity is removed. There is some identity management lifecycle that is put in place by that organization. So there is an IT department there. But they are not using Azure Active Directory. This organization could be using on-premises identity providers. They could be on Amazon Web Services using Amazon Identity, integrated with Covisint, Okta, Centrify, Ping, what have you. Or it could be using Google at Work. Either way, there is an IT department. There is an identity management story for that organization. That organization is not yet on Azure Active Directory. With Azure Active Directory B2B, we want you to be able to work seamlessly with that organization without needing that organization to create an Azure Active Directory for the privilege of working with you. So that's type 2. Type 3 is an organization that has no IT department. It's a small business. All they have is 10 employees. They probably bring their own Gmail addresses in to work. Or it could be Joe the plumber. Joe and Sally run a plumbing company, and all they have is an email that was provided by Comcast. Joe at Comcast.net is painted on their truck. They want to work with a construction company that's using Azure Active Directory. They want to bid for that new business with the construction company. And the construction company wants to keep their data safe. We don't want to teach Joe and Sally how to sign up for an AAD account or an MSA account. That's not what they're good at, and they're not going to be successful working with this construction company. So with Azure Active Directory B2B, we want you to be able to federate with people like that who do not have any identity at all, but still be able to do that securely. With AAD B2B, we want organizations to be able to work with anybody on the planet. So that's the first part of the comprehensive promise. The second part is, no matter which application you have, you need to be able to invite external partners and collaborators to it. It could be a Microsoft application or not. For example, with Azure Active Directory, one of the top third-party applications that is used is Google. Google works with Azure Active Directory. So we want you to be able to invite your partners to any application that is important to your business. It could be an on-premises application. There are lots of organizations that have not yet moved entirely to the cloud. You have investments on premises, spent millions of dollars creating that perfect line of business application that's just right for your business. We want you to be able to invite your external partners to that application without their having to have local accounts with you. So that's the second part of the comprehensive promise, works in any application. We want this to be easy as well. So we are rejecting the notion that usability and security are choices that you can make. You will not be successful if you have to choose between security and usability. In fact, if your system is so secure that it's hard to use, most likely all the interesting data that you care about is going to other systems anyway. And likely, it is going to systems that you don't know about. In fact, if you're an IT organization, you probably see that people don't want you to know that they're doing work in a particular way because they're afraid that the controls that you might put in place for them will make that product unusable too. So with Azure Active Directory B2B, we are rejecting that notion. We want usability to be an important security feature. So we want this to be easy for your end users to use. We want this to be the simplest thing that your organizational users can do, but we want this to be protected seamlessly by Azure Active Directory security features. So all your partners will be able to bring their own identity, but you'll be able to take conditional access, identity protection, MDM, MAM, auditing and reporting, governance, all of those things that you use Azure Active Directory for today, Azure Information Protection, and all of those will apply to your partner relationships as well. So comprehensive, easy, and secure. This is what we are going to do. Everything that we are going to announce today is going to show you that we are advancing in this goal. Of course, we are not there yet, but every single thing that we are doing is going to move us forward in these three areas. Does that make sense? Great. So a quick refresh. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. For those who have not used this already, you know that with Azure Active Directory B2B, administrators can add any email address on the planet to your organization today. Coming back in, they are going to need Azure Active Directory and MSA accounts, but we are going to change that. You can delegate the ability to add partners to other business owners in your organization so you can get out of the way and not be a bottleneck for them. And the business owners who really know who the partners are they need to work with can do what they want to do. We have APIs that allow applications that we're going to demonstrate today, as well as third-party applications, as well as PowerShell, custom applications, to integrate with our B2B platform and do external collaboration in a secure way within that product. We also have auditing and reporting capabilities, multi-factor auth, conditional access capabilities. All of these are already part of the product. If you want to see how the basic capabilities work, I think this is a feature that's designed to make sure that you can take a picture of the slide. Mea culpa, it's my PowerPoint that decided to crash. But in the next slide, I'm going to show you a URL where you can actually go and look at a 15-minute demo of how these capabilities work together. So this is the kind of security feature which is completely unusable. That's going to kill your productivity. So, all right, so this is the URL. If you want to look at a basic set of demos on how Azure Active Directory B2B works, it's just 15 minutes, worth a watch. Please go and watch it. We're not going to do basic stuff today. We're going to dive into details. So with that, let's dive into the top questions that we get. The very first question that we get is, hey, we have a lot of applications that are very important to our business. How does external collaboration work in those? So we are going to first start with showing key Microsoft applications that are important to you. So I'm going to invite Sahil on stage, who's going to walk us through how Office 365 Groups leverages B2B APIs and does external collaboration. Sahil, take it away.
Thanks, Sarah. Can you guys hear me? Oh, yeah, it works. So, hi. I'm Sahil. I work as a program manager in Groups, and I take care of guest access in Outlook. So before we get into the demo, I quickly want to tell something. Oops, this is, okay. So this is all we've been hearing today, starting from Satya's keynote session to various groups, team, Yammer session, that teamwork is changing. It's getting more and more global, and it involves people who are outside your organization. In fact, as per statistics, 43% of American workforce is made up of contingent workforce. That means these are the people who are outside your organization, and they work with multiple companies at the same time. Another insight here is that today workforce is getting more and more millennials, younger people, and these are the people who literally breathe in, breathe out in consumer apps like Snapchat, WhatsApp. And in fact, we did a survey before Ignite, and we got this scary number that 56% of these information workers don't mind using these consumer apps for collaboration if the IT approved technology doesn't suffice their need. The good news is that we at Microsoft have multiple solutions, Outlook, Groups, Yammer, which helps you to collaborate with external people in a very simple, seamless way, and admin policies which are mastered in Azure, which will make it safe and secure. So let's get into guest access in groups. So when you invite a guest user in Outlook groups, you can invite a B2B user or you can invite a consumer user. This user gets created in Azure B2B, and then this user is synced to various Office apps, such as SharePoint, OneDrive for Business, and Teams, so that all the context that you have in Outlook groups, you can seamlessly use in Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint. And we've released guest access in Outlook last fall for web, and today millions of people use for a plethora of scenarios, from mergers and acquisitions, partnerships with companies, even in EDU world as a parent-teacher scenario. So with the email, you can actually invite any email, be it consumer, be it, in fact, we've seen maximum usage coming in from consumer domains. And on the other side, guest user can collaborate without any need to install third-party app client. They can use it from their favorite email app or browser. So let's get into the demo. Let me know if you're able to see my screen. Okay, cool. So I'm going to demo guest access in Outlook Mobile, and I'm also going to show guest access in Outlook Web and Outlook Desktop. So this is something that we haven't released, and what we're going to see is fresh out of oven, so I hope it works. So I'm signed in as Christy. She's one of the marketing manager in Fortune 500 companies, and she collaborates with an independent graphics designer for designing her posters and marketing content. So she goes to her Outlook mobile app, selects the group that she wants to add. Let's select this group. And then adds Branda. She is the designer. So you can actually see, because she was collaborating with Branda, this Branda came as a search result. And the moment she types, she got an info warning that she's about to add guests, so she's aware of that this person is external. You can now see Branda is added as a guest in this group. She goes to the group and create a review meeting. Selects, let's make it on Friday. And sends this meeting invite. So now let's move to an experience, what Branda is going to see. This is 6. Yeah. Okay. You can now see Branda has received this welcome email. You notice one thing, that this mail is customized for Exchange. So Azure B2B provides you capability to customize email based on your organization needs. She has all the information that she needs to collaborate, and she can access files, she can start a conversation. So let's click on access file. So usually when a user is trying to access file, and specifically if they are Gmail non-Office 365 user, they need to create an MSA account. But for this demo, I already have an MSA account for this Gmail user. You can now see she gets the full-blown capability of SharePoint. So guests in Outlook have it works seamlessly with SharePoint. She can upload a file. She can upload the artifacts, multiple other things, that whatever she wants to do. She can co-author and work seamlessly with Office apps as well. She's also received this calendar invite, which she can add to her personal calendar, so that she receives notifications and she is up to date with the stuff. She also has this footer. Every conversation has a footer which contains relevant information. And then she replies to this. So I'm going to show the web version of it. You can see the group received this conversation which she sent from Gmail, Branda sent from Gmail. You can also invite guests through Outlook Web, and you can see, filter it, and you can also do that from Outlook Desktop as well. So that was the capability that exists today in Outlook, and we are planning to release in Outlook Mobile and Mac, Outlook Mac client. And now I'll call Laith to demo how this same group, same context works seamlessly with Teams for a deeper immersive experience.
Thank you, Sahel.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. This is Laith. I am from Microsoft Teams. I own identities and guest access for Microsoft Teams. How many people here uses Teams? Everybody. Fantastic. Phenomenal. All right. Let me just get my computer started here. So, as you all have seen and noticed, Microsoft Teams is becoming the center and the hub of Office 365. It brings together the best capabilities of Office 365 applications so that you can easily, in a fashionable way, collaborate with users across your entire organization. Thanks, Sarah.
This is what I do. As a platform, you are responsible to make others better.
Fantastic. All right. So 3 weeks ago, we released guest access for Microsoft Teams. I think we had more than 4,000 votes on Microsoft Teams user vote, which indicates that we actually listen to your feedback, and we really want to provide you with a fantastic experience. With Microsoft Teams external access, we want to enable and empower every single organization on the planet to easily and securely collaborate with external users. The way we designed the feature is that you can holistically or selectively grant access to external users to participate in Teams channels, chat, files, and even first and third-party apps. So today, I have 2 slides that I will be walking you through very quickly so that you can see how the feature actually works. So Teams rely on Azure Active Directory business-to-business platform. It's the foundation, it's the engine of all of our services in the cloud. Teams store all of the identities of guest users and regular users in AAD. Teams also uses Office 365 groups to store memberships, Teams classification, privacy settings, and so forth and so on. So we didn't want to reinvent the wheel or redesign our backend infrastructure to make this happen. We rely on existing component. Now that's great for us because it makes my job easier. What's in it for you? What's in it for you is that all of your deployment investments that you have done through your usage and adoption of Office 365 can easily and very quickly be reapplied on Microsoft Teams. And this is true for files, because we store all of our data in SharePoint, and this is true for all of your policies for external access. So Microsoft Teams guest access can be added, or those users can be added, either through your IT admin, so that if you have multi-thousand people that you want to add at the same time, you can do that easily and fast at scale. We also want to provide you with the means and settings so that you can empower individuals in your organization to add their own guest users. So you have to be a team owner in our case, and you have to have that feature enabled. And I will walk you through some of our authorization dependency that we have. The one key message that I really want to deliver here is that with Microsoft Teams guest access, because we rely on AAD B2B, you don't have to go out and trust external organization, create federation, or do any sort of administrative overload. There is no user management, there is no password management, it's just there for you. It actually takes a couple of minutes for you to be absolutely up and running with Microsoft Teams guest access. So there is the notion of authorization dependency because we rely on AAD B2B, because we rely on groups, we rely on SharePoint, and so forth and so on. So when we release the feature, it's disabled by default. You can go in and enable it using Office 365 Admin Center. There are a few settings in AAD that you can use to control whom can add guest, who can delete guest, how those guest users can be inserted in your directory. So the first thing first, you have to make sure that your AAD, which is the foundational platform for Office 365, allow guest users to be added. The second thing is we introduced guest-specific tenant-wide and user-wide settings in Microsoft Teams that you also have to go in and enable so that your users or your administrators can add guest users. Once both of the settings are enabled, we can then determine at the authentication level whether you have access to individual components and services in Microsoft Teams. So the perfect example here is if you don't want your team owner to selectively add guests to their respective teams, you can go ahead and disable that in groups because, as I mentioned, we use these groups to store membership and data classification as well. So with that, let me jump into my demos. All right. This is screen two. All right, fantastic. So I am logged in here using the Microsoft Teams web version. I'm logged in as Tony Eisen, I happen to be today. So you can see I am in my home tenant. What I will do is I will use my desktop client to invite Tony to my organization because he happens to be a senior advisor. He is the expert of the experts, and I really need his help. Oops. So what I did before we started the session, I already went in. I actually added Tony as a guest. This guest user is now fully provisioned in my AAD. I'm, in fact, using the same groups that Shahil showed us because you can use a team group as in teams or as in groups. The one important thing that I would like to highlight here is when you add a guest in Microsoft Teams, we also facilitate the option for your team owner to input the guest user's display name. So if you have somebody with a numeric email address, you can go in and change that to an actual display name. Once I add the user, we broadcast a message to everybody in the team, letting them know that there is now a guest user that has been added. And because we use Teams all the time, so this text message or this broadcast message might be pushed upper in the conversation, we also add a banner letting everybody know that there are guests in this user, and there is another banner when you go into the basically membership roster, indicates that there are guests in this tenant. And you also can see this new type in Teams, which is guest. I can also, because we use this AAD, go in and input the title of my guest user, their location, and so forth and so on. So Tony has now been added to my team. What happened behind the scenes? There is an email invitation that he received, letting him know that he now has been added. But we also really wanted to build an in-app experience in Teams so you don't have to go back and forth between Teams and email. So what happens is, under my user profile, you can see I have been added to the Contoso as guest. So what I will do here is I will switch tenants, or I will switch teams. And you can see that the Contoso tenant require multi-factor authentication. So let me just quickly input my multi-factor authentication password. So two things happened so quickly that you didn't even notice it actually happened. When I authenticate with my guest user, I'm being redirected back to my home Active Directory, and I'm authenticating there. So there is no notion of a new password, new username. I basically use the same set of credentials that I always use. The second thing that have happened, because of Contoso demand and require multi-factor authentication in their tenancy, I'm being challenged with that. Right? So those are really two important information for you to remember. So now I'm logged in as a guest. You can see one of the things we did in Microsoft Teams is we didn't want to introduce an alien experience in Teams. A guest user should be as a first-class citizen as possible. However, there are some capabilities and limitations that we discussed 2 days ago in the Microsoft Teams session that you can go in and look at. The one thing I would like to mention here is, as I'm logged in as Tony, I can go in, compose a message, I can upload file, I can even chat with people within my team. It's boundary. So let me very quickly show you the mobile experience. This is number 7. All right. So here I'm using Microsoft Teams app on iOS. And if I go into more, you can see the same tenant picker experience is on iOS. So once I switch my tenant, that's all. I have actually authenticated. Because I just signed in with multi-factor authentication, it didn't re-challenge me, which is great. And I'm in as a guest directly from my mobile. It took me less than a second. With that, I really hope my portion has been informative for you. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, guys. My name is Suri. I'm a program manager on the Power BI team. Let's talk about Power BI for a second. But first, I'm going to actually switch over back to the presentation slides. All right, so let's talk about Power BI. So at Power BI, our mission, right, is to empower every user and organization to make better decisions with data. And to do that, what we do is we make it really easy for you to take your data wherever it lives, right? Find insights from that data aided by AI and machine intelligence, and then distribute that data widely to all the end users who are actually going to be able to act on that data. Okay? And so, we've been GA for 2 years now. We've grown really, really quickly, and we've heard something really consistently from our customers, right? And this is very much in line with what Saurabh and folks have talked about here, which is they want to take this data that they have, put it in dashboards, put it in reports, put it in BI solutions, and then distribute that content to their external partners, right? So we work with, for example, a lot of large retailers. They have a lot of suppliers, and they want to send reports to those suppliers to say, hey, you know what, this is where you fit in the value chain, this is how you're meeting your SLAs, et cetera. And so this is just a constant ask for us. And we've started down this path, right? We've released a new capacity-based service called Power BI Premium. It's going to let you not have to worry about licensing for your partners when they receive the dashboards and reports. We also released Power BI Apps, which is a way to bundle up different reports and things into BI solutions. But up until now, we were missing one piece of the puzzle, right? Which is a way to actually securely distribute this content to those partners, in a way that's secure, in a way that really just works, right? And that's where AD B2B comes in, right? So today, for the very first time, I'm really excited to announce that we will be supporting, with Power BI and with Power BI Apps, AD B2B, starting in October with a public preview, and we'll be moving to GA from there, which is really, really exciting for us. And it's really going to enable that scenario, right? That vision of being able to distribute your data to your partners. So I'm going to show you guys a quick demo of what that's going to look like. Is it recognizing my face? OK, so here what I have is I'm signed in as this guy, Randall. And he happens to be in the measured product tenant, right? Like, let's pretend that this is one of the suppliers that we were talking about before, and they want to distribute this report and a bunch of other reports to partner teams. And so here, Randall's already built this report. It's fully interactive. It's just classic Power BI. And he doesn't want to just distribute this one report. He's built an entire solution, right? So if I click back here, you can see that there's actually a bunch of reports here, some data sets, a dashboard, et cetera. Okay, so what I can do as Randall, and this is a really easy, seamless experience, is I can publish what we call a Power BI app, right? So that's a bundle of different BI solutions. And I can just come in here to the Access tab, and this is where I'm going to be able to extend access, not only to users in my organization, but to users in external organizations for my partners. And so I've already added a few, but here I can just, for example, add this other guy, Michelle, in the granular controls tenant. And I've already added him before, as you can tell, so it just shows up in the dropdown. And so now these folks just have access. So if I hit Update App, that app gets pushed out to those users, and they get the invite emails, and everything just works. So from here, what I can do is just pass over to this Marcy. So Marcy is in a different tenant, right? She's in the granular controls 1 tenant. It's one of our test tenants. But imagine she's a supplier, right? She's able to just come in here to Power BI and see the apps that are available to her, including the apps that are coming from external, from the previous tenant. And so this is actually the app that I just shared, Design Workflow Status from Randall over here. And I click on it, and it just works. I just see that report again. I'm able to start exploring the data to get the insights out of it. And of course, through the app's experience, I can actually come in here and see the different dashboards and reports that were also bundled in there as well. Right? So it's just a really seamless experience. You don't have to worry about the mechanics. You just, as an end user, you can just extend access and give access to your end users. Now, the one last thing I'll end with is, we understand that certainly as an administrator, you're tasked with governing how data moves throughout your organizations. And so certainly you might want to not only control who the data is shared with, but also who can do the sharing externally. Right? So with Power BI, we have a set of really powerful admin tools that allow you to kind of really, that give you really fine-grained control over who can start distributing this data externally. So this is the Power BI admin portal, and we have a bunch of settings that admins can set. And as you can see at the very top, we have a setting called Share Content with External Users. So here you're going to be able to set the group of folks who can actually do the external sharing that I just showed. And so here you see it's currently enabled for the entire organization. And I can just come in here and really easily say, hey, you know what? Maybe only a certain security group can access that. My security groups aren't populating, but you get the point, right? I can just add a security group. I can hit OK. And then now, only that security group can do it. Everyone else will just get an unauthorized error message. OK? So that's my demo. So I talked about how Power BI is going to allow you to really seamlessly share your Power BI dashboards and reports to other organizations. Now I'm going to invite Brett on the stage. And he's going to talk about how you can do this as well with data of all sorts of shapes and sizes.
Thank you, Siri. And now I need to get back to the PowerPoint again. Don't know which one's on. Number 5. Okay. Okay. So on the back end of the system, so we've seen a little bit in the front end with Teams and Power BI, and that's the best way to share with organizations and with the kind of office experience. On the back end, you also want to be able to use B2B to secure various kinds of assets. Azure Analysis Services is a version of SQL Server Analysis Services that you can run in the cloud. And this is a layer over your data warehouse or your Spark data lake, those kinds of things that you can put as a layer that you can enforce security and put a semantic model to make it easier for people to understand what is available in your system. So people use analysis services. It's really part of the Power BI family, so it's really the same kind of technology. And people put data modeling, security. Most of the time, people secure things through security groups, but you can also use dynamic security. So say you have a supplier, they can only see data for a certain region. You can put all of that information just as a data-driven part of your application. So what I'll show today is that one of the scenarios, just as Siri mentioned, we have a lot of scenarios where people want to share information securely with their partners and give them access just to the information they need. And traditionally, people might do things like we'll give you an export, but then you lose control of your information. So what we've added is this Active Directory collaboration with B2B. What this allows us to do is when you share with that user, we are able to ask Active Directory, is this person the person that we thought that they were, and give them access to that runtime. And we always do this check every single time they come in, and we'll apply those role-based security rules. We even have things like column-level security. So some suppliers can see certain columns of data. Say you have a margin column in your data. You don't want your suppliers to see what margin you're charging for that, or maybe what your costs are. So you can even hide columns from individual customers and users so that you can control exactly what you want them to have access to. So I'll just go directly into the demo now. This is number 7. So I'll just show how we've enabled that. In this point of view, you're kind of coming from the developer or IT person. Let's see if it's coming up yet. Let's see, I picked the wrong one, maybe. Number 2. Yep, picked the wrong one. Okay, there we go. And so that you're coming at this from a point of view of a developer or an IT administrator. You can also manage these things through ARM and APIs. So I'm just showing the portal so that you understand how it works more visually. So I'll just go into analysis services here, and I'll see some of the ones. I have one that I created this morning. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and invite a user. In this case, I'll just do it as an administrator so you can see it from the Azure portal perspective. You could also add them to individual roles within the data model. But since this is not an analysis services or Power BI session, I won't go through the details of doing that. So here I'll just add a user. And you'll see I have many external users. I can also use this invite button if they have never been invited to the tenant before. So I can also invite users. Again, as we talked earlier, there's all kinds of bulk methods to add all of your suppliers to it. But this is, say you're doing development and you're just doing some testing, this is the way you might get started. So let's just pick a Microsoft account. I'll add them in. I'll save that. And we've seen Power BI, we've seen Office. Let's talk about some other parts of ways that people use data. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and open this data model in a tool like Excel. And this will give you an idea of what that flow might look like for another kind of application. For Azure Analysis Services, the same data flow will work for tools like Tableau or other third-party tools. So you can really safely share your data with all of the partners that you have, and they can use whatever tool that they want to use to access the information. And the great part is that that data is still secured behind your firewall and behind your AD. And so they're just accessing the information through this, this layer, and it's completely secure in that way. So we'll just add a user. And we're showing you the power of AD here because I'm using another machine that I've never used before here. So hope this works. And now what it's doing is Excel is basically asking our service, is this user authorized? Active Directory is letting us know whether the user has access. We go through and run through all the security rules, go through what people are doing in terms of their role-based security. At this point, I'm only able to see data that I have access to, but I don't have any experience as an end user. I don't have to go through any extra steps. I just use my normal password. And there was basically I didn't have any perception that I'm using this extra security system. And that's that ease of use that we were talking about. So I'll just add some random piece of data. And this is probably not a very interesting database. So I don't actually even know which data I have in this database. But trust me, the data is in there. Maybe I have a role security where I haven't granted myself any read access to the data. So this is just an example of how you can use it. And so you could use a tool like Excel. And obviously, we have all the Power BI integration. So our recommended way to share data is with Power BI. And then you can add Azure Analysis Services for all these additional scenarios where you have other tools that are coming into the scenario. So that's it.
So hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, but this is not all. Every application in the Microsoft product family is going to eventually support external collaboration within the construct of that application. For example, what we are not going to demo today, but what already works is with external sharing, you can actually add an external accountant to your Dynamics 365 financial product, and you can do number crunching along with external partners in a secure way. External sharing is also going to come very soon to Visual Studio Team Services, so that if you have an external developer that you're sharing a product with and you want to do code development with, then you can do that with Visual Studio Team Services. And the best part of it is all of this automatically inherits all the changes that we're going to be doing in Azure Active Directory to enhance these experiences further and to also improve the security posture of these applications even further. Now let me skip over, and of course, Dynamics 365 CRM is another application where if you want to use it for sales and leads, etc., you can do that with external partners also. Now, one of the questions we get asked all the time is, this is great. It's understandable that Azure Active Directory powers external collaboration for SaaS applications. But I'm a company that, while we are starting to explore the cloud, we still have some key investments in our on-premises data centers. We have apps, millions of dollars invested in these custom line of business applications. Can we get partner users to access them? And the good news that I want to share with you is that you absolutely can. And for this, I want to talk a little bit about Azure Application Proxy. How many of you here have heard about Azure Application Proxy? Fantastic. So for the others here, a quick way to summarize this is, along with Azure Application Proxy, you have an on-premises application that can be published to the cloud. This application now has a footprint in Azure Active Directory that holds its policies and authorization and authentication settings. Whenever a user tries to access that on-premises application, what they do is go to that cloud presence of that application, which is just a shell for the configuration and settings, clicks on it. Then we service that request, make the user sign in with Azure Active Directory, apply, which means that he can sign in or she can sign in with external credentials now, then apply all the authentication policies like MFA, conditional access, and identity protection. All of that happens there. And now we say, OK, now this user has proved who they are. We trust this user's session. Then we create a request for that on-premises application. We attach the token and the request, put it in a queue to something that we are calling the connector. This connector is a small, lightweight connector that is sitting in the on-premise infrastructure. This connector actually reaches out to the cloud and has a long polling session with the cloud. So as soon as a request shows up in the queue, the connector picks it up. Then this connector says, oh, this request is by this user for this particular application. The connector can then do protocol transition. So if your on-premises application is using Kerberos constraint delegation, for example, then this connector will be able to take this token that was generated by Azure Active Directory for this external user, take the important information about the user, for example, it could be the UPN, take the request for the application, play it against the KDC on premises, and then say, I want to request on behalf of this user, this application, and actually gets a Kerberos ticket that it then plays against that web server, web application on premises, gets the request, puts it back. So what happens is this external user essentially uses your application panel, access panel, and is able to communicate with an on-premises data in a secure way. So that's the end-to-end of how something like this would work. Let me show you what that looks like. So here I am signed into Azure Active Directory, and I'm going to go and click on the application. Oh. Did we get that? Great. So now I'm going to go and click on the application proxy settings. So that application proxy here, I've created what's called a connector group. You see the Ignite 2017 demo connector group. That contains the actual connector on premises that is going to be doing this handshake between the cloud and the on-premises infrastructure. Now, if I go to the application itself, what I see is, let me first go to the application proxy. This application this is an internal URL on premises, and this is actually the published external URL, which is assigned to this particular domain that I own. And this setting says that this application can be reached through messages to this connector group. Now, let me look at the single sign-on settings for this application. Here you see that this is a Windows integrated auth application. Essentially, it's going to use Kerberos constraint delegation. And it says this is the service principal that indicates this application. And by the way, this is the information that I need from the token to connect to this application, which happens to be the UPN in this case. Now, what that looks like on premises is this is that connector on premises, which you can see here. This is the connector, the same exact connector that you saw was part of that Ignite connector group. So when I look at the properties here, I go to the delegation settings. First, it says, trust this computer for delegation to specified services only. That's the constrained delegation part. And then if you look at the protocol transition bit, I have chosen use any authentication protocol, which means that whatever comes up, whatever that authentication protocol is that AAD supports, this connector is now able to transition that protocol into the application protocol, which is Kerberos constraint delegation. And this connector is also has the permission to talk to this service principal name, the same service principal name that you saw in the cloud. So this connector has the authority to be able to access this service principal with constrained delegation and impersonate that user in the cloud. So that's how this is set up. What that means is that when I go now this is John, who's a Woodgrove user. When John goes to their access panel, now John could be an external user. This external user has been granted certain permissions within the context of this directory. So all of those applications are showing up. Part of that application, list of applications, is this Ignite 2017 application. Now, as far as John is concerned, it is just another application. John does not have to know that this is actually an on-premises application in your organization. As far as they're concerned, that's one of the applications that they can access. But now when John clicks on it, all the magic that happens behind the scenes. So this, let me actually show you right now, when John clicks on that application, John is redirected to Azure Active Directory. All of the authentication happens there. So John signs in with external credentials with Azure Active Directory. Authorization checks happen there. If multi-factor authentication is required, it happens there. Risk-based identity protection, everything is done there. And now John is dropped on this. This is the on-prem application that they are seeing. Now this is an application that happens to be built with form-based auth as well as Windows integrated auth. And this is the Windows integrated auth link that when John clicks on it, that's it. All John has to do is click on that application and is able to see that on-prem application. Is that cool? And if this application is built with Windows integrated auth, this would be completely a seamless experience. They've just signed into Azure Active Directory and access the on-prem application right there. And the best part is all of the authorization checks that you wanted to apply for external users, it's all there in the cloud. And therefore, your on-prem app assets are now protected with Azure Active Directory security. So with that, since you're talking about security, let me get Mark on stage, and he's going to talk to you about the end-to-end security capabilities that are available and will be available for B2B collaborators.
Thanks, Rod. Sure, I'm on 8.
Yep.
Okay, so what I'm going to be covering now is the perspective of someone who's really just here for IT security. Sure, guest, business stuff all sounds fine, but for my end user, it's important that they have access, that they can collaborate, but how do we make sure that that stays secure, that we don't have new risks associated with external user guest collaboration impacting an organization's security posture? So we've seen a number of the controls so far inside of the demonstrations for groups and teams and so on, the ability to scope who is allowed to invite guests. Is it everyone? Is it only people in particular groups and so on? We've also seen how we can integrate with on-premises resources as well. But what can we do across the board, across not only the other Microsoft SaaS applications and the on-premises applications, what about third-party applications? What can we do for all of those so we can make sure we have comprehensive protection? You've probably seen in the past our ability to protect content. For example, information protection, where we can ensure that, say, a document or an email is secured as it leaves an organization boundary. But what can we do for access? We have a couple of features that we have. Some have been out in preview for a number of months now, and then a few new features that we are starting for preview this week. Let me show you a little demonstration of these three capabilities for Azure AD. So probably a lot of you have seen the sessions earlier this week with conditional access. Who's seen conditional access before? Most of you? That's good. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. The basic idea is that with conditional access, you can determine what controls for access are applicable to different communities of users, for different applications, in different risk environments. So all of that model works not just for employees, but for guests as well. So here I've set up various conditional access policies. I've got some for employee access. I've also have policies that I've defined for external user access. So let me just show you what one of those looks like. I can go and I can select what groups are in the scope of this policy. So I picked the marketing and sales external users we've been using for this demo. I can select what cloud application this policy applies to. It can be some of the Microsoft applications, but it's not limited to that. We have some on-premises applications like that Ignite app and third-party apps as well. And then I can configure various settings. I'll show some of the other sessions later. And then the controls. What controls do we want to enforce? We saw the multi-factor authentication in our earlier demo. We also have a new capability for control called the terms of use. Some of this you've seen in earlier sessions, like for the GDPR session. What the terms of use does is it allows you to ensure that a user sees a terms of use document, whatever terms you want to display, before a user accesses an application, and to track that that user has agreed to that terms of use. Now, this is particularly important for a lot of our customers that are in regulated industries that are holding sensitive data. They may have already gone through and done training and awareness for their own employees. This material is confidential, this is sensitive. But what about guests? A guest may not have been to those training courses. They may not be aware of all the handling constraints. We want to make sure that guests see that experience as well. So when a user who is a guest goes and clicks on an application on the access panel, we can put in front of them the terms and policies. Warning, here's whatever language you want to write for them. And then at the end, they click that they've accepted, they've read, they're aware of this material. So that then you can go back and audit which of the guest users saw that, which accepted, and then you have the audit trail. So that then later, if there's any questions, I didn't know the data handling procedures, you can show them that yes, indeed, you had agreed to that before you even got to the application. Now, in addition to ability to do basic things like put a terms of use in front of the screen for an end user, we also have more advanced capabilities of monitoring, are the users themselves at risk? So most of you have seen, hopefully, identity protection. Most of you have turned it on by now. If you haven't, definitely take a look at identity protection, because identity protection will give you more visibility into which of your users are at risk in an organization. This is a very powerful capability, so you can see here that Alex Wilbur, who's that marketing guy, has been doing something very risky. Probably a lot of people have been impersonating their identity and using their credentials for, well, all of our different demos. This is a very powerful capability, not just for your own employees, but also for guests as well. So if you're working in a supply chain, you want to make sure that other people who are your B2B partners don't form, I would say, the soft underbelly for getting into your organization. Make sure that they're aware of these capabilities, and so that their users can be monitored and protected in the same way. You can ensure that if their credentials are ever compromised, they get awareness and they can go and fix that problem, whether it's through MFA or changing the passwords or doing some other form of stronger authentication. Now, a lot of the features we saw brought guest users into the system. And that's great. You could say, yeah, it's wide open. You can enable anyone in your organization to invite guests. Or you might decide to scope it down. Maybe only a particular department, maybe only IT can do it if someone calls help desk. But eventually what will probably happen is you'll have a lot of guests in your directory, and you'll say, we have a lot of guests in our directory. Why? What are they doing here? Do we still need them? Do these guests have the right access? Do we have perhaps guests who have more access than they should just because no one remembered to go and clean them up? So one of the new features that we're working on for Preview Now are controls that help maintain the guest user lifecycle. The guest users represent, for many organizations, a new area of concern. Normal employees come in from HR systems. They have a feed coming in perhaps from SAP or Workday. When someone quits or they go on leave, then their group memberships are removed, their account is disabled. What can we do for guests? Well, guests may not come from HR. There may not be a signal saying, oh, this guest is no longer there anymore. So we need to have some compensating controls. I'll be going a lot deeper into this in my session this afternoon, but let me give you a quick overview of how we're thinking about this. One of the first controls we're doing is access reviews. Access reviews allows you to go in and recertify which users need to have access, and you can do it at, say, a group level or an application level. So you can say, I want to have someone check who are the members of the group. Could be everyone, or you can limit it to guest users only. I'm only interested in making sure that the guests in this group are who they say they are. Could be an office group, could be an on-prem group. or I could do it for an application as well. Either one. You could say, who has access to the application? And you can choose who you want to do that review. You could say, for example, the group owners review. That would probably make sense for an office group. You could ask the members to review themselves. This is very popular for guests, to ask the guests, hey, do you still need access? And if they say no or they don't respond, you can take them out. Or you can ask other people in the organization, perhaps even a sponsor for the guest, perhaps even someone from the third-party organization to go and do that review. And then that user, no matter who it is, will get an email notification saying, hey, there's a review that's starting. They get some information, and they click a link that takes them through an experience. They can go through and see the guests, who in this case are members of the sales partner, and they get some recommendations. Which users have signed in, which haven't signed in. And this guidance allows a reviewer to then quickly look over this list of guests and say, yeah, this looks about right. People who haven't signed in for, let's say, the last month probably aren't using the application, probably don't need to be in the group, and you can go ahead and remove their access. Obviously, you can do a line item veto and override. So if let's say, Mark, he really needs access, please, something like that. You can go ahead and record that. And then again, all this information is audited and recorded, so that then you have the audit trail. Who signed off on this group membership? When someone then asks later, how is it that the guests knew about this? Well, we can go back and look. Someone approved that, someone in the business. So again, this allows IT to leverage the expertise in the organization, someone in sales, someone in marketing, perhaps someone in the guest organization themselves, to come in and sign off on a regular basis on these guests and what they have access to. And then, of course, we want to make sure all this information is visible in the audit log, so you can see who agreed to the terms of use that I mentioned earlier, how did users sign in, not just to the Microsoft apps, but to third-party apps as well. So we see, for example, here one of our external users, Irvin, from another tenant, the application they signed into, where they came from, was MFI required for that. And then all this information is available not only here in the portal, but you can download it. We have APIs, and you can integrate this in with various other STEAM tools. So we have guidance for how to get this data to flow into tools like Splunk or OMS or other systems, so that now you have a comprehensive view on what guests are doing in your organization, what resources they've been invited to, and that you have presented to them the terms of use for access to those applications, and there's been some sign-off by, let's say, an application owner or a resource owner or a group owner or a sponsor that indeed those users do need access. So we'll be going into some more detail later in the session, but now I'd like to hand it back to Sarat, who's going to be talking about some of the additional scenarios with B2B and Azure AD. Thank you.
So have you liked what you've seen so far? Yeah, awesome. Let's have a round of applause for all the presenters that have come so far. Thank you. Now, this is all great when you add a guest user to an organization. They are able to be added to any application that you care about, on premises or not, Microsoft or not. This is all fantastic, right? But a lot of organizations have a real issue where they might not know who to add ahead of time. I mean, they work with a partner, but what if you don't know or can't know or don't want to know ahead of time who the individual user is? So here, we have organizations that might say, look, I know that I want to work with the users from the real estate litigation department at that Litware & Associates company, but I actually don't care who the individual user is. It's the job of my law firm to make sure the right attorneys are added to that group, and I want to work with them, right? How many of you have this issue? All right, so one of the capabilities that we are working on, which we've already demoed as part of the GitHub code, is the ability to allow for self-service registration for partners within policy constraints. So in other words, what you can do is offer your partners a way to come in and sign in with credentials that they have in the partner company. And you can have policies that say, if this user comes from the Contoso company, add them to this specific group. If the user comes from Fabricam, they're not going to get added automatically. Somebody needs to approve them. These are the terms of use that the Fabricam users must go through, and so on and so forth. So let me show you how that works. This is a part of the GitHub sample code that we have published. You can actually go and find it here. And have everything that I'm going to show you now, you can actually look at the code that makes it work. and you can take it, do a one-click deployment into your Azure subscription and test it out. And if you want to customize it, you can do so. We will be taking this also and putting it as a part of the product so that nobody has to do customization to get it. But that's a roadmap capability that we are working on. So let's take a look at how something like this would work. Just duplicating this session so you can see what I'm talking about. So when you publish that GitHub application from using that Azure subscription deploy button, it shows up in the access panel of the administrator who you need to have access to. So when the administrator clicks on the site, the first thing they can do is manage the site config, which means that using the sample code right now, you can actually customize the welcome message that shows up for the users that come in. You can require terms of use to be accepted that you can, that Mark showed as well. It's available for this application. You can require that they accept the terms of use, and you can have a nice little welcome message. You can skin it and template it. The next thing you can do is go and add a few domains that you're working with. For example, in the Woodrow organization, I've said, hey, I work a lot with Microsoft. I work a lot with Litware and Contoso. And these are the policies that I want to apply for users who can prove that they come from Microsoft, Litware, and Contoso. So let's take a look at what the Microsoft policies are that I've set up. Notice that in this application, we actually, when you type in that domain, Microsoft.com, we go and verify that it's an actual Azure Active Directory domain. Now you have the opportunity to ask your users to pre-authenticate and prove that they belong to Microsoft. And then you can say, here are the available groups. This application gets all the groups that are present in your Azure Active Directory. And you can say, when a user comes in from Microsoft, just add them to this group. Now you can imagine that when that user comes to that group, and if that group is permissioned to the appropriate application, the person who's coming and doing self-service sign-up would get seamless access to those applications. And of course, all the multi-factor authentication and other settings also apply to these users. If the user does not belong to any of those domains that you have established, when they come and request access, they just get added to this queue where you can actually go and manually approve them. For example, if I am signing in at sarath@gmail.com, Sarath, I agree with terms of service, and I can read it, but most people probably won't. They accept and request access. What I'll see now is, thanks for signing up. We'll get back to you by email when you're approved. Now, this allows this user, who's not even provisioned for access, to automatically get onboarded. Now, this user actually shows up there it is. So this user shows up in this list. Either I can approve or deny right away, or I can mark this user as pending and leave a note for somebody else who knows about them to come and approve them. So this allows the use of B2B APIs, all the security capabilities that you saw, all the application access that you saw, but automate the onboarding experience using APIs if you wanted to, or even delegate the onboarding experience to your self-service partners if that's what you wanted. And now this whole thing starts to come together. It allows organizations to work with other organizations in the way that they choose to work with them. Do you like that? Yeah. All right, so let's wrap it up. That's great. So while PowerPoint decides to crash and come back up, one of the things that you're probably thinking about right now is, great, so I know how I can work with partners. I can add them to applications that I care about. I can apply multi-factor authentications and security policies. But how do I make sure that they are signing in easily? How do I make sure that they are signing in with the credentials that we are bringing? Because I spoke to you about bringing your partner's identity to work with you. So today, with Azure Active Directory Type 1 partners, you know that the seamless access to actually, can I have Late? Could you help reboot that PowerPoint? Thanks. So sometimes platforms need help from applications too. With Azure Active Directory, we have seamless federation that happens between two AAD tenancies. It's just part of the identity fabric in Azure. We are working on federation with Gmail addresses as we speak. So we're going to be announcing the ability to let your partners bring in gmail.com identities and security sign in, while you can still apply MFA and other policies. Thank you. So MFA and other policies to them. We are also going to be extending that to other identity providers, and watch out for our announcements there. The ability to work with any identity system on the planet, that is something that we take super seriously. We want you to be able to put your data in the cloud that matters to you and that matters to your partners, and not have to worry about how these users are signing in. So just close that out. Thank you. So we talk about type 1 partners, partners with Azure Active Directory. Those partners just work today. Type 2 partners are those that have an identity system of choice. We want to eliminate the need for AAD signups for them also. And we are working on type 3 partners, enabling them to bring their own consumer identities in. So that will take care of the authentication part, the onboarding part, application access, security, and we'll just be constantly improving this set of capabilities so that you can really, really work closely with partners without having to worry about how that's going to work. Do you guys like that? So just a quick recap of what we talked about today. We saw that Azure Active Directory B2B can be used in any application that you care about. All the Microsoft applications that customers have asked for very vehemently, there's active work happening. You saw groups, teams, Power BI, VSTS, all of those things coming up. Applications that third-party applications that are integrated with Azure Active Directory get to benefit from Azure Active Directory B2B identities being, external identities being in the Active Directory as well. We spoke about how you can manage security and life cycles of your external collaborators. We spoke about how you can make it so that your partners, within the constraints of the policy that you have established, can come and sign up for access. And with that, I'm gonna call the other speakers on stage as well, and let's go into Q&A. Was that good? Did you enjoy what you saw?
It's all right. Hey. So question, so go back to the slide on the groups, the 1, 2, 3 tiers. So I think this question is relevant to at least the first and second. So when Laith was up, he demonstrated that in one case, his external group identity came from a Azure AD tenant, and it required MFA, so it was leveraged and enforced. The question I have is, in that scenario, and in the second scenario where the third-party IDP also has its own step-up authentication.
Should we ask them to have else? All right, sorry,
yeah, if our conditional access policies require MFA, but it's already been performed, or some other step-up authentication has happened by the other tenant or the third-party IDP, is there messaging in place that will then tell our conditional access policy that that condition has been met and not reprompt for?
That's a fantastic question. So today, so the question is that if I'm working with a partner and I trust that partner, can I let them use their MFA settings or their, and other verification settings and trust it to be adequate for my organization's needs? So the answer is we're working on it. Today, your organization completely controls that, and so MFA would be required in your case. We are working on the capability where you can pinpoint certain partner organizations that you work very closely with, that you trust, and then say, for these partners, I'd use their MFA or their policies instead. So those capabilities are on our roadmap. Thanks.
Okay. Hi, my name is Andre. In my organization, we are heavy users of Teams and collaborations with other customers.
Great.
And we are using a lot of product management in the planner, but the planner doesn't show up for the guest users. They can't see the planner activities.
Right. So, for Microsoft, so in Teams, today there is no, for a planner, there is, you can't have a guest entity yet. Soon you will. And same principles apply with other applications. So one thing is you entitle them, or you basically invite a guest to teams. Another thing is you have to figure out those applications entitlement requirement and grant them access after the fact. Okay.
Thank you.
Down there?
I had a question about skipping the invite process after the first one. I understand if you have your organizational tenant, you have to initially invite them. But after I invite an external user once to my organization, given all these products that are eventually do and will support B2B, do I have to keep inviting them to every one of my products? Like with SharePoint, I invite them once, and I have a script that automatically adds them to a security group, and that security group I permission throughout my SharePoint applications. Can I eventually permission that same security group to maybe to Planner or Teams and these other applications?
Yeah. So that's a great question. That's a very good pattern to follow, where you invite a user to a security group and that application is permissioned. So most applications that support both security groups and external identities to be used already support this pattern. And other products will soon as well. In addition, you can also make it so that when you invite a user from the other organization, you can add them to a specific directory role that's called the guest inviter role. This is a limited administration role that extends the ability to add other partners to people that you want. And this collaborator that you added from the other organization, when added to that role, can now add other people from their own organization. And when they do that, invitations are not even needed. Because the reason why we need invitation redemption is to act as consent. We do not want to presume that this user wants to work with you just because you invited them. So the invitation process is a consent step that's very important. But like with any other consent, either the user themselves can consent to work with you, or somebody who's qualified to consent on their behalf can consent on their behalf. And so the ability to add somebody from that org, and when that person invites them, we say that's implicit consent, and we don't need the redemption step. So that can happen as well.
So I see lots of people. That is absolutely phenomenal. We will be here. The next presenters need to come in and prepare. Thank you so much. Come up, and we will take all of your questions.
Thank you, everybody.